He's looking at his phone. This is Chris from Deus Ex Machina.
I'm Dave from Rampant Wolf Games.
And we are here to talk about top 5. It's been a hot minute since we've done this. It's quite literally a hot minute. It's very warm outside, and we're both wearing shorts. And we are here to talk about the top 5. I just want to have a guitar riff. An epically large game. All right. So these are large games. Game length was not a factor in this. Obviously, those go hand in hand. These are games that feel epic,
and literally will take up like a 4x7 footprint of a table, like massive. Some may not. Physical
size, no, but sometimes the epicness it's pretty vague on the epicness. It could be a game that goes along for a really long time. A lot of stuff happens.
I know which one's going to be on your list then.
It could be. I don't even. It could be a game that it does have a very large footprint, or a game where a lot of things happen.
Okay, I went with large footprint.
Large footprint I think is almost dominant in my list as well.
Yeah, because for me because for me, epically large is just like when someone's like, "Hey, let's play number 2 on your list," and you're like, "Yeah, that's a lot of setup."
Like for me,
you're here too late.
I'll say these 2 games because I almost put them on my list for alternate reasons, and that was games like Caverna and Feast for Odin, because they're epic for a different way. They're epic because they have so much game. Yeah, they're not epic because not a lot of things like, I have a house, and at the end of the game, I now have some pigs and another dwarf, and I have a farm. So we call it epic, but it took you 9 hours to get there, and a lot of components. Mm-hmm. So like these are top 5 epically large games. From our very loose definition of the word.
And see, like one I'll give that I can't believe isn't on my list, so I almost want to. Just one second, I have to make a quick edit because I can't say one is because I haven't played it.
Well, the problem is I know what some of yours is going to be, and I think
so
because I don't actually own a lot of epically large. I looked over my collection, and there are games which kind of imply epic, but for many reasons
I'm not talking about Tiny Epic.
No, one thing, Tiny Epic. The Tiny Epic games are not on this list.
No. But one that I took off my list just now, partially because I've never played it, so I kind of had that as sort of a requirement, but I kind of cheesed it. I took off Twilight Imperium 4 because it's a large game for playtime,
right?
And I think for footprint, but having not played it, I can't honestly say. Now that I own it, maybe I'll find out. But
and by the way, when you say you own it,
I literally just own it.
Yeah, I literally his wife brought it in like 20 minutes ago.
It's right there.
It's still sealed.
It is.
Okay, so number 5.
Can you just give it to me?
Damn first game.
1, 2, 3.
All right, fine.
Okay, number 5.
Eventually, I'm just gonna do the same symbol and just give it to you. Anyway, okay.
All right.
Number 5.
Coming in at number 5 is Firefly, the board game. Now, this game
I'll give you that.
Yeah, this game by itself is not that big a deal. When you throw in Blue Sun, Kalidasa, the whole damn verse map, and then you add in all the other Firefly class ships.
When you add, if you look at just your box, there's no way.
And then you add in the Bounty Hunters expansion, the Aiming to Misbehave expansion, and there is Wanted, I think it's Fugitives, I can't remember. You add in all that stuff, and then to top it all off, you have a Broken Token organizer that is called a Big Damn Crate.
Which you own.
Which I own, and it literally is a big damn crate. And that's one of those games where someone's like, "Hey, let's play Firefly game." I look over the box and I'm just like, literally,
it's almost too big.
Yeah,
it's almost too big now to play.
I literally don't have the energy to pull that.
I would love to have that. I think there would be a line where I go, no. It's like my fiance. She will play all Carcassonne. Like she will whip out every expansion. She never invites anyone to play it. She just starts playing it at 9 o'clock in the morning, and she'll play it until 5 or 7 o'clock in the evening. It's more a stress exercise, just to get her stress out, just to do it. But she will never invite because she knows nobody wants to help to go in on that.
Nope.
So that's your.
That's my number 5, Firefly the board game. Yeah.
My number 5 is. I have a feeling that we might have some crossovers. I don't think this is one of them. Mine's related to yours. Mine's Gia.
Oh. I did not actually know.
Well, the one thing about Gia is that when it comes to being epic, I think that in a single box, it has more than the core box of Firefly. When you add in the number of ships, everything. The fact that there's so many ships, so many missions, and so much you can do, as a single box, sandbox game, I don't know if there's a sandbox game that allows so much and gives you so much in the core box in that one.
Yeah.
I adore the little ships. I love their color, they're pre-painted. I love what you can do to them. And I know that you can run the clock as long as you want.
Pretty much, yeah.
And we've done that. We've done 10 and 20 and just keep going. Because you can just end the game and go, let's keep going. And we'll just keep going. It's a game where you're maybe not necessarily worried about whether or not you're going to win or to lose because you're enjoying yourself too much.
Yeah.
Exactly. It can play really long if you have a large enough player count. There is an expansion that does add a few new things. It doesn't change the map metaphorically, but Gia is a fun game. So that's my number 5 pick. Gia. Let's call the whole thing off. Number 4.
All right. So my number 4 is only ending up at number 4 because I haven't played it.
3 and 2 and 1 are better.
Well, I don't know because I haven't played it yet. I'm assuming it is good, and it is epically large. And this is corroborated by many people who have done unboxings for it. They say this game is just huge.
What's that?
Midara.
You own Midara.
Yeah, I do.
If you haven't played it, so you played you own it, but you haven't played it.
Correct.
You've only had it for like less than a month anyway.
Correct. Yeah. And
I hope we get to play it soon.
We hopefully, yeah. And the only sad part is that they've already announced that there is the second act coming out.
Yay!
Kickstarter.
Will I get to back it and get the old one?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, they're doing it. They had to do a second print run as well with the combined because there's been they've sold out.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And because after I saw the graphical, the production design, I was just like, oof, this is looking good.
Yeah, and like you're talking about a narrative-driven game is what their actual engine is called, NDG, and the book for encounters is this big. Well, it's 8.5 by 11 by that thick.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And that's just one of the books in the game.
Yeah.
There's another 3 books. There's the solo book, the map book, and then there is the rule book, which is also massive and coil bound. Like all these books are coil bound for the most part, which
is nice.
It is nice. I wish a lot more game designers would think about doing that, especially if they have massive rule books. Or
I think if unless it's saddle stitch, it's almost one of those things where you have to almost coil it for a manual.
Well, like.
For technically rule book should be. You don't know this, but but you do. But I actually went and I coil bound all my D&D books.
Yeah.
Right. Beyond the fact that WotC, God bless them, didn't do a very good quality print one for original 5th edition. So my 5th edition Monster Manual and my Player's Handbook both fell apart.
Yeah.
So it's just like instead of just buying another book, I had it coil bound, and now it was like, oh my God, how much it cost you? Oh, $14. Like, oh my God, what?
Yeah. Well, another game that really would benefit from coil bound is the Crusoe Crew, and it's a choose your own adventure multiplayer game.
Red Raven's games are coil bound.
Yeah, and they didn't coil bound it.
Yeah,
and it's one that you flip back and forth. Yeah. Well, one playthrough, my book was already falling apart.
Oh,
the binding.
That was the annoying thing about the this War of Mine is the 7-point font in a perfect bound book. And you having to constantly flip back and forth. You compare that to a Red Raven game like Above and Below, which is coil bound and like 12-point font, and you realize why we play one game and not the other.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your number 4.
That's my number 4. Midara, I'm hoping it'll move up in the list, but for currently, it's number 4.
My number 4 is Gloomhaven.
I figured that was going to be on the list.
Well, when you think about it, yeah, it's the only game probably here that can, like, I have a very small default gaming table. I have 2 gaming tables. Yeah. My default gaming table is a 4x4.
Yeah.
As a result, it can be really useful for 2 players. 4 players, it's tight depending on the game. Gloomhaven we can play on that map. Now, we do actually have another fold-out table which has kind of our monsters we have laid out. But it's most of the time you can play with a relatively small footprint. The box, however, is just show you the amount of variety in the game.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that the more I play it, the more I firmly believe that Gloomhaven does not deserve its number one spot. I think there are better games out there. I think that in the last year or two, there are some games that have shown that Gloomhaven is not the end-all, be-all. A lot of people I know are like, oh my god, it's got 97 missions. Oh, great. And when did you give up?
Yep.
Kind of thing.
23 in.
Yeah. So it's one of those situations where, yeah, that's great, but when did you lose interest? And some people are still into it, but it's actually really difficult to find people that have burned through the campaign.
And the reason why is this. So if you take your
It's not a bad game.
It's not a bad game, but here's the
I'm giving it a
problem.
solid 9.
Yeah, here's the problem with Gloomhaven. If you have a gaming group that you can get together regularly, usually that's once a week. Cool. An average scenario for Gloomhaven, if you have anybody in your team who has analysis paralysis or is just human, you can only get through one mission a night. The average campaign is actually 50 levels. The other 50 are solo.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of solo and a bunch of
there's
alternates.
So there's only technically 50. To get through all of those, that's an entire year of gaming to get through one game.
For an average, 52 weeks in a year.
If nothing comes up.
Yeah, exactly. And something.
Now you have holidays thrown in there, birthdays, anniversaries, disasters, whatever. Now your game is taking two to 2.5 years to play.
Yeah, with change.
At 1.5 years, we lost interest. We're just like, we can't sit. Like,
I know people that spent well above premium for Gloomhaven. Yeah. I had one guy who spent $200 some for Gloomhaven. I spent like $130 for Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
And 6 games. That's it. 6 games, and they started just opening up the boxes and just playing whoever they wanted to because they had lost interest in the narrative.
Wow. Yeah, and the problem
I'm not there yet, but
the problem that we ran into was that we actually ended up game ruling a bunch of stuff. So it was like what we ended up doing is it's like, okay, so personal quest. It's like, all right, I've got the one that's got this symbol on it. Do you have that one? Cool. We'll give you a different quest. So basically, we did it so that everybody in the group had a different unlock.
Oh, okay.
So we guaranteed that there was no duplicates on the unlock, so we saw more of the game. But even as the problem we had was that you unlock the box and you're just like, sweet. You pull it out, you're just like, yes, awesome, we unlocked something. You pull it out, you look at the stats, you're just like,
Is that it?
You look at the cards, you're just like, why was this an unlock character? He's not, it is not super better. So my incentive.
It seems like a crapshoot who they choose to be.
Well, yeah, and also, but even that, it's just like if you work to unlock something, and it takes you, depending on how it goes, it could take you 20 missions to unlock some characters and stuff like that, and they're only marginally better.
And on top of that, you're all start at a lower level.
Yeah, and then your character automatically retires, which is a cool mechanism. I like it. But the guy who's replacing my guy that I've worked on for 20 weeks or however long it took me to get to had better be way better than the character I just played, who I leveled up and was good. Otherwise, it just feels like I got punished. And that's my problem.
This is not the Gloomhaven crap on.
No.
I know, but it is one of those situations where, look, it's number 4. It's a good game. It's a good game.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily saying 3, 2, and 1 are better. I just find that they're more epic.
Yes.
So that's my number 4. Gloomhaven number 3.
Number 3. Coming in at number 3 for me is Arkham Horror 2nd Edition.
I almost put Arkham Horror on my list.
Now, the reason why I
Not
say...
third.
Yes, the reason why I'm saying 2nd Edition versus 3rd Edition is because Arkham Horror is going to end up on another list that we're going to do, even though it's not in the list you want to do, which is games that have come out and fizzled.
Oh, the games that from 2nd to 3rd Edition.
Yeah, 3rd Edition came out, and
that's gonna be a hard list for me because I don't own a lot of games.
I don't own a lot of games that have fizzled either, but I bought this one. I bought 3rd Edition because it was just like, this is gonna be good. Fantasy Flight knows what they're doing.
Oof, no, they don't.
No, they don't. I was wrong.
I played a lot of Fantasy Flight games. The Fantasy Flight games that are decent are the ones that they have no hand in designing.
Yeah.
When they're importing a game from Europe, those games are actually got some solid. When they're designing, one guy said it best. It's like, you'll always know it's an internally designed Fantasy Flight game because they love their mini poker cards.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones keeping that industry alive.
Yeah, and you know, honestly, second edition has so much table space. If you actually had and actually the sad part is that they killed their production of second edition stuff because they wanted to push the third edition. Nobody's buying into third edition.
Did we play the third edition or play second?
We played second edition.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I've never played third edition. Yet.
No, you haven't played third edition. Third edition is like taking Arkham Horror card game,
which I've heard good things about.
Which is good things. Second edition, Eldritch Horror, throwing them in a bag, pouring water on it, pouring gasoline on it, setting on a fire. No, that's a little harsh. Third edition, just they tried to do too much with it, and on top of one of the things that frustrated me the most with it, they killed the player count.
Oh, they dropped it.
They dropped the player count, and it was just like, why?
Because they wanted the game to be played in less than 8 hours. That's what number 2's for.
Yeah, well, but the thing too that ended up happening with that, and why number 2 is so much, or second edition is so much better, is honestly when you lay out all of Arkham Horror with all its expansions, it's huge. It will take up the entire table, just the board, the cards. I've designed a special card holder over there for it. That's for Arkham Horror.
Really?
Yeah.
Second edition.
Yeah. And also Eldritch Horror, because it has the same thing. It has so many cards. And it is such an epic experience with Arkham Horror because it is, literally feel like you get sucked into it because you're just like, oh, I need to get the weapon so I can get better, and you feel better because there's points where in Arkham Horror where I've seen it, where someone's like, okay, I'm going up against this monster. Okay, cool. I'm going to be using this weapon. Okay, they're susceptible to this particular type of weapon. Epic. Okay, that means I need. Gotta count. I need 13 dice. And you roll 13 dice and you're like, ah! It is the most epic, gratifying thing. It's like doing 52 card pickup, but for a reason. You're just like, boom! And then you're trying to get 5s and 6s, which statistically you have a very low possibility of doing, but still, when you're throwing 13 dice, you feel better about yourself.
I do. That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's my number 3. Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Back on topic.
My number 3 is Eclipse. Back to you for number 2.
That was quick.
that's my parable. You go in a rant for like 5 minutes. I'm like, hey, number 2 is Eclipse. Sorry, so number 3 is Eclipse. Okay. Yeah, that's it. On to you. No, Eclipse is a good game.
I can talk about Eclipse if you want.
Eclipse is a good game. Eclipse it has those kind of functional similarities to other games we've talked about. Even has a bit of Gia where you're exploring things and you might or might not connect your empire to somebody else's. Yep. The one game that the last game we played,
you didn't.
I never.
You're an isolationist.
It wasn't by design. It has nothing connected. So I quite literally wherever my empire was, even though it was technically adjacent to yours, was in reality far away from everybody to the point where it was not accessible. And so at that point, I didn't have to develop a military because nobody could get me. So I just built monoliths for the last 3 rounds of the game, and I won. Yeah. I won without firing a shot, and I like that.
Yep.
It's a fun game. I'm not going to go on a rant about things that have happened since then with sequels or what have you. I'll just say that the game I played.
Yeah, fair enough.
I like the 4X, the fact that you can satisfy one or two of them without always getting forced into one specific X to always have to do. So I really, really enjoy it. It's a space game, so that's a given.
Yep.
So that's my number 3 pick, Eclipse.
Yes, I will agree with that one. Having now looked at it, I would say possibly that one should have made it onto my list. I would have probably bumped off. I'd probably knock Firefly off for Eclipse.
All right. So, number 2 for you.
Number 2 for me is a new addition to my collection. You've played it. And honestly, I was leery about it because when I backed it twice on Kickstarter, and then I canceled my backing on it. And then I bought it at retail. Now, the happy part of this is that I paid retail for it as opposed to Kickstarter for it, and I still got everything. So I'm happy.
You probably paid less.
Yeah, and I probably paid less. Especially seeing as I didn't have to pay for the UV spot coating. And that game is Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. Horrible name, epic game. Now, I
keep on confusing it with another title. I don't know why.
Heroes of Normandy?
No, it's something with Land, Air, and Sea in it. Maybe there's a video game somewhere.
Probably. This game surprised me. We first initially set it up with 7 people, and
that was insane, by the way.
It was insane.
We played that game the first time we played that game. We didn't even do a test of 2 people. We didn't figure out the rules. We went right to 7 people.
Yep.
And it took up this entire table and was multi-leveled.
Yep.
And we had a bunch of novices and people who were experienced. It was our first game, and we played for 4 hours.
5
hours.
Yeah. And we enjoyed the
Well, it does one thing that a game like that should have. I just played because I was just telling you about ranting about playing a game, which is a game like similar, but there's so much downtime between turns. And in this game, you are actively looking because it does one thing I love, and I said that they took all the tiny epic games, or all the games that company's made, period.
Yep.
And then looked at
what worked well.
What are the mechanics we like? They grabbed all the mechanics they liked, swapped out meeples for miniatures, and then expanded the scale so it would match the scale of the miniatures they used. And they went, well, this is not a tiny epic game. Like, well, don't make a tiny epic. Go the opposite and just take out the tiny and make it epic.
Yep.
I mean, they took stuff out of Tiny Epic Galaxy. We've seen stuff on... The only thing, my fiance was like, can you personally arm the guys? Like, no, honey, you can't personally arm your miniatures. She's like, oh, darn. I go, trust me, honey, you'll like it. So it is terribly fun. The race variety, especially because you backed everything, is really enjoyable.
Yeah.
And the fact that it does play functionally well at 2 people and at 7, I think is a tribute. But the fact that, despite the fact that we were playing 7, I was... And you know me.
Engaged.
You know me.
Yep.
I'm a person. I have ADHD.
You get disengaged.
I don't get... I come to a point where, in order to engage other people, sometimes I have to turn parts of my brain off and watch my phone. And I know some people have issues with it, but it's one of those things, situations where sometimes you have to get used to the fact that maybe I'm listening to you, maybe I'm not, and I want to be here, but my brain has literally said, you need to do something else before you go start raving mad. And I never did it. You know,
no.
Very seldom did I ever whip that out because I was more interested. Because you can follow up other people's actions.
Yes, and that, honestly...
I also won the game, by the way.
Barely, though. It was really close, which was nice.
That was interesting. It was 2 points.
It was 2 points.
It was 2 points to one of the novices.
Yes. And that was another thing that
was a Captain America nudging the hammer moment, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Just like... and there's that moment, and then you won, Chris. Like, oh yeah, okay, you.
Yeah, it was that game surprised the heck out of me because it was a close point spread. Everybody was engaged. Everyone had fun. It was 7 people, and by the time we were done, it was just like
I was asking you.
It's midnight.
No, it was 1.
Yeah, it was like get the hell out.
Yeah, it was. It was, holy crap, it's noon the next day.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I have never, and it's sad because here's the part that you don't know. There was stuff we still didn't include. There's mercenaries, there's side quests, and there's nomads.
Well, there was actually very little, I was going to say, there was very little engagement, then I forgot you and another player apparently have a personal grudge. But it was actually interesting too because the person that came second place, very few people attacked each other, except apparently your half, but the other half of the whole board didn't attack anybody.
No,
and we were just sitting there being very, very peaceful. And then the person who almost beat me decided, I'm going to attack you for no reason, and I actually said, that's not a good idea. And she's like, no, I think I want to do that. I'm like, Okay, if FYI, you are going to lose.
Badly.
I should have actually had her fight me because then I would have had a more of a definitive.
Yeah.
But it was one of those situations. She's like, "Oh, maybe I won't do that," and she was trying to accent someone else. It was. I literally went home, I showed them Nicole photos, and just like, yeah, if it wasn't for our budget, that would be something we'd pick up.
Yeah.
So that's your number
2, I think it was?
Yep, number 2.
Number 2.
Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea.
Yep.
My number 2 is Breaking That Rule, and I have Twilight Imperium. Which I have right here.
Yeah, go for it. If you can pick it up.
Well, I'm actually really, really solid with my hands. That.
Yep.
And whenever anyone talks about an epic game, this is kind of part and parcel of the whole experience.
Yeah, this one always comes up.
354 miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
354 miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
17 factions. It does not need to be this big. They do it out of, I don't know, spite. Oh, what's wrong with my nose? My nose is just... It's one of my hairs on my mustache. I keep on going.
It reminds me a lot of Sandy Peterson's Hyperspace.
Which hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, it hasn't come out yet, but it's a similar epic scale.
That is certainly the audience he's shooting for.
Mm-hmm. And the funny part is, when I get it, it's going to probably knock some of them off the list just for its sheer size.
Well, because I saw that, it's like, oh, he's going after that audience now. It's kind of like, and I'd be interested, except the fact that it's one of those situations where you have to be in the right mindset. In Twilight Imperium, it's one of those situations where it's the longest game, single experience in a single box. I mean, you can get a longer game by playing games with expansions, but that one, just out of the box.
Well, and that's just it. And like, the thing that I've heard about Hyperspace, though, and I've watched the videos, it's actually really simplistic, which is what drew me into actually backing, because I was like, okay, I can whip this one out where I can't whip out that or Eclipse, but I can whip out that one, and people...
Well, Eclipse wasn't terribly difficult. Once you got to
It's not terribly difficult,
like Land, Air, and Sea, I thought, like, oh my god, we're never going to get through this. And when we sat down and play it, I was like, oh, okay. Like the novices, I was like, okay, novices may take longer, but it was just like, oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Because once in my brain said, oh, that's from Tiny Epic. Oh, that's from Tiny Epic. Oh, that's from Tiny Epic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's from Harbor, and so forth.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's my number 2 pick. Twilight Imperium, you know, is on the list. Let's just move on to number 1.
Number 1 for me. Oh, I tried to steal it.
You probably will anyway.
Yeah, I was like, we got to do the 1, 2, 3 girls. 1, 2, 3.
Snip.
I guess I didn't steal it.
You didn't steal it. Because my number 1's going to be quick, because it's something he's already said.
Here's a Lander.
It's Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea.
Nice.
I think it's we're skewed here. We're skewed. Let's be 100% honest here. The game, you whipped out a 7-player game.
Yep.
That encompassed this entire table, and I think we had to use the foldouts as well.
Yeah, we did. We had to use foldouts. Yeah.
But the fact that in a 2-player game, you can play it on our old table, which is a 4x4, it still is epic for its size.
Yes.
You play 4 players, it gets pretty big. We played 7. There was an undersea kingdom, a air kingdom. I was the bird people. Flash!
Yep.
Die!
And the funny part too is there's still 3 races that we didn't use.
Well, the game doesn't go up to 10. But,
No, but it has 10 races.
But it has 10 races.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the moment you had bird people, I was just...
Yeah. That was pretty awesome.
Squadron 14! Dive!
Alright. My number 1, I'll let you have 2 guesses.
It's not going to be Gloomhaven. It's not going to be Eclipse.
Nope.
And obviously it's not Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea because you already said it.
Correct.
It's got to be Shadows of Brimstone.
It's Shadows of Brimstone.
What else is going to be? I think the core game, I'm sure, probably isn't very big. But the fact that you have 500 some games, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And half of them are Shadows of Brimstone. You have a wall.
Well, if we
you have a wall of Shadow of Brimstone.
Yeah.
You literally you have things that are hanging off the wall.
That are Shadows of Brimstone.
And you have several trays of I can whip this camera around. Shadows of Brimstone taking up whole shelves, boxes. You had another shipment arrive like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. True.
But you have put. I'll guarantee you that there is an employee at what, Flying Frog?
Yeah.
There's an employee at Flying Frog that says, well, thanks to Dave Townsend, my kid has gone through college.
Thanks to lots of people.
You're going to get a message saying, thank you, David, we're paying for my treatment. You have made me a better man.
Yeah, it's an epic game. I mean, really, honestly, they took the concept, honestly, of sliders and just made it epic.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know what sliders is,
It was
shame on
it was
you.
a really horrible show from the 90s. That
it was okay.
I will never forgive Sliders. It was Fox had a choice. They were going to confirm they were going to renew one of two shows. They renewed Sliders because it was the cheaper show, and they canceled Space Above and Beyond. I will never forgive Sliders for that.
Space Above and Beyond. I don't know.
Sliders was Space Above and Beyond was canceled because it was a more expensive show, even though it was far superior.
I don't even know that one.
Space and Beyond. Oh my God, Space Above and Beyond.
Nope.
It was probably one of the greatest science fiction shows in the 90s. Went for one season, done by the two good writers from X-Files,
Oh.
Glenn Morgan and James Wan.
Hmm.
And it is all. I should lend you the Blu-ray. Actually, I don't have I have the DVD box set.
Yeah.
But yeah, Space Above and Beyond came out around the same time in Deep Space Nine, like back when people were throwing shows left and right.
Yeah.
So it was out. I think it was a few years after. So it wasn't the same
Back
year.
when like C Plus would actually sponsor shows.
Yeah. I think my brain tells me it might have been the same time period when Sequest and Earth 2 and all these other shows on there. Remember when it was like, it was a sci-fi renaissance?
I say Earth 2, people are just like, huh?
Earth was awesome.
Earth 2 was awesome.
I think not, though. I think Earth 2 and Sequest might have been earlier than this.
It's possible.
Because I think Space Above and Beyond came after.
Yeah.
Because Space Above and Beyond and Sliders had just done its first or second season, and they decided to renew it because it was a much cheaper show. But anyway, yes, go on. Sliders for your...
So Shadows of Brimstone basically is Sliders meets everything.
Everything.
Because in Shadows
You were talking about Gloomhaven. Like, oh, we're never going to go through... You will never go through all of your Shadows of Brimstone.
No, it's possible. It's possible.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Because I've actually people have gone and actually built a narrative-driven campaign for the entire game.
Why isn't there one already?
Because Flying Frog is lazy.
Shame.
You guys are fucking lazy. Get off your butts. Anyways, not like they care, but they are. They're lazy.
Remember, this is coming from a guy who literally is responsible for half your campaign goal.
No. But anyways, no. It's that they're lazy. Someone has built like the amount of content for the community.
The more you just told me that there's no narrative campaign for a game this size, I'm like, are they on the sauce? Like, what?
I know, right? But the narrative-driven campaign someone that built is this thick.
You know what's really amazing? I made a review for Deep Space D6, which is that little game about this big that's completely solitary. Apparently, you can go onto their website, and there's a 25-page narrative campaign you can play. If that company can put out a narrative campaign for a $25 solitaire die-placing game in a box this big, I'm pretty sure that Flying Frog can do a narrative campaign for this thing.
Yeah.
Shame.
So yes, that's my number one, Shadows of Brimstone.
All right, so my for Epically large game, number 5 is GN, number 4 Gloomhaven, number 3 Eclipse, 2 Twilight Imperium, and number 1 Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea.
They really needed to shorten that name.
No, that's fine.
It's cumbersome. All right,
really, really,
yeah,
really.
First
Martians, Adventures on the Red Planet.
Yeah, but how often does that game make it onto a list?
I can look on your wall and go, oh, how about Roll for the Galaxy Rivalry? Yeah. Shadows of Brimstone. Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. That's only 7 syllables.
Alright, my number 5, Firefly, the board game. Number 4 was Midara. Number 3, Arkham Horror 2nd Edition. Number 2 was Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. And number 1, Shadows of Brimstone.
Oh, I've been Chris.
And I've been Dave. And remember, the rules are just a suggestion, but somebody better follow them.
I like that one.